Most landlords require a deposit before you can occupy a rental property. This is often the equivalent of 1 month's rent, but maybe 1.5 or 2 months' rent in areas of high demand like Cape Town. The deposit is a form of security against any damage you may inflict on the property. The definition of damage can be subjective, and some property owners will try to claim fair wear and tear as damage. For this reason, I always recommend having a well-structured lease that clearly sets out the expectations of both parties. You should also carry out an initial inspection jointly with your landlord and tenant to agree on the condition of the property and any effects. You can even take photos to prevent any disputes later on. The deposit should be repaid at the end of the tenancy, less any deductions for damage. I'll explain the legal rights and responsibilities of both parties concerning the deposit. The Rental Housing Act is very clear on the terms for the repayment of a deposit. The landlord must return the deposit within a set time frame, but the length of time depends on whether or not there is any damage to the property and whether or not you attend the final inspection before vacating the premises. There are 3 main periods that apply. If you don't owe anything to your landlord, for example, outstanding rent or utilities, the landlord must pay the full amount of the deposit plus any interest to you no later than 7 days after the termination date, excluding weekends or public holidays. If you owe any amount of rent or utilities or other costs, or if there is any damage that needs to be repaired, the landlord can deduct the cost from your deposit according to the provisions of the lease agreement. This is where those original photos might come in handy. The landlord must pay the balance of the deposit plus interest to you no later than 14 days after the termination date. If you don't attend the final inspection, the landlord must inspect the property within 7 working days from your lease termination date to assess any damages or loss. They may then deduct the reasonable cost of repairing any damage or recover any money you owe from the deposit. The balance of the deposit plus interest must be refunded to you no later than 21 days after the termination date. My firm, Dippenaar & Associates SD Law, is a specialist eviction law firm. We help landlords and tenants maintain healthy working relationships. If you have any questions about your deposit or think your landlord has not returned a fair amount, please contact me on the number below. I can also help you with any queries you may have regarding your lease agreement or review your lease if you are about to move into a rented property.